Okay, welcome to Christian Practices. We're looking at the role of the church in the local and worldwide community. And for this session, we're going to go a little bit worldwide. We're going to go a little bit further abroad. We're going to start off by looking at two words, mission and evangelism. And then we're going to move on to looking at another word, church growth. And we might touch a bit on persecution as we go along. So, mission and evangelism. Now, sometimes what we do is we split these two words, mission and evangelism, and we split these two words. So, mission then ends up being about the church trying to make the world a better place by challenging injustice, getting involved in politics. There's some excellent examples in regard to this in Latin America, in South America. Evangelism then would be, if you like your Venn diagrams, so mission would be a nice big circle, and then inside that nice big circle would be a smaller circle, and that would be evangelism. You had a big circle of mission, smaller circle of evangelism. Evangelism is about me telling you about the joys of knowing Jesus, your friend, and then you saying a prayer and you becoming a Christian, and then you telling another person about the joys of being a Christian, and them saying a prayer, and then them telling someone else about it. You get the idea. And so evangelism is about Christians saying about the good news of Jesus, and so it's quite focused on Jesus and you becoming a Christian. That's the idea. Now, it's important that you become a Christian for a whole bunch of reasons, but in particular in the area that we've been talking about, one of those areas is to do with mission, is to do with making the world a better place, fighting the injustices that we see around us, and making the world a fairer place for everyone, regardless of faith. So a lot of what the church does addresses ecology issues, and how can we help make our church communities greener? How can we make the villages and society that we live in greener? And so we as a church have a go at doing this. Now here's an example where a friend of mine went along to her local supermarket and said, "Pretty please, would you sell some tea that is fairly traded?" You see this logo? See this logo? That is a fair trade logo. "Would you please sell some of this?" And the supermarket said no. So the Christian went away, and she got her church together, and she went, "Who here shops at that supermarket?" And there was a bunch of people. "Who shop at the supermarket?" And they went, "How much do you spend there, like on a weekly basis or a monthly basis or something? How much do you spend there?" And they worked it all out, and they went back and they went, "We spend so many thousands of pounds at your supermarket, and we would like some fair trade." And they went, "Yeah, okay, we'll get some fair trade in." Now, what that is the church people showing, being able to do stuff that you couldn't so easily do as an individual, that they're doing this as a community, as a church family, caring about the ecology, and this is what we call mission. It's bigger than just evangelism. Evangelism is terribly important, but that's mission. Now, church growth. Let's talk about church growth. Now, you should be able to see by now that church growth is important to us, because if there's no church growth, then there are less Christians, and that means the church gets to do less. We can help homeless people less, run fewer food banks, and so on. And I mentioned in the last episode how the majority of volunteers in this nation are religious, and of that lot, the majority will be Christian. There's some great Sikhs and Muslims and so on and so on and so on who do some marvellous work. But on the whole, you will find that most volunteers, or at least those who are starting up those groups, they will be religious in some broad sense or shape or other. They will be it. Now, you don't need to be in order to do this stuff, but you've seen what happens when we as a church come together, and it's that coming together where we have this ability to do more than you can as an individual. If you are together, then you can do so much more. Now, in this country, you might be feeling that the church is getting smaller, and it was getting smaller. It's kind of stopped with its getting smaller. It's got to a point, and it seems to sort of be quietly bobbing along where it is. But there are certain places where actually the church is growing. One example of this would be St. Peter's Church in Brighton, where the church is very much growing. London, more people are going to church in London than were going 5 years ago. So you could see that actually churches are growing in this nation. Newark is a church that I also help run, and certainly 5 years ago there are more people there now than there were 5 years ago. So in certain churches you do see growth, but in other churches it is a little on the quieter side, so fair dues. But we must remember is that around the world there are thousands and millions of Christians all over the world. It's not just like an English thing, and it's not like it was an English thing and it's all come and gone. But on the whole, the church is growing very well around the rest of the world. Now, when you come to school, almost no one that you know says that they're a Christian. You need to be really brave in order to say that you're a Christian. When I was at school, I don't think I ever told anybody that I was a Christian, because it just wasn't cool. And then you get asked difficult questions and you don't know the answer, or you get teased and it's just dull, and so you just shut up, and you get through school, and you keep your faith quiet, because you don't want to be bullied for it. It's just boring. And so it's one of the things you just keep quiet. So it's very likely that you actually do know a bunch of Christians. It's just that they're not going to tell you, because they're not going to tell you. It's just not cool being a Christian, and we get picked on for different reasons. We get teased, and I don't know why. And there are some reasons, and if you guys want to explore that, we could look into that. But what you need to hear is that in the rest of the world, Christians are not so much teased as they are persecuted. And that is seriously different. Seriously different. You think that bullied is seriously different. Persecuted is a gear up from being bullied, which is evidently a gear up from being teased. It's a big deal. And it's really bad. I went to a church no, I'm not going to tell you. I went to a church once where I was told not to take photos of people. Please don't. It was a general announcement. Please don't take photos of people, because a number of the folk here are Christians. Some of them are thinking about being Christians. They're not Christians just yet. They're thinking about it. But what they do not want is their faces on Facebook, because if it's seen that they have been to a Christian church, then they might get their tyres slashed. They might have bricks thrown through their window. Their kids will get picked on at school. And that was in a really calm country, and not in this country. It was another country. It was in a calm country, and that's for real. It's for real. There are other places where if you're a Christian, you are in danger of being killed. So it's a big deal when you say, yeah, I'd like to be a Christian. In this country, it's no big deal. You say, I'd like to be a Christian. Yeah, that's great. But you might get teased a little, but in other countries, there can be quite some serious ramifications. So April last year, I think it was it the year before that, there was some religious fanatics who got into a church. Well, there was a handful of churches, and they blew themselves up in these churches, and they killed hundreds of Christians in their religious fanaticism. To be fair, there were some amazing, brave Muslims who stopped some of the explosions. So well done you. Thank you for that. So there's amazingly brave ones there. What is the response to this? Well, churches on the whole, they do their best to keep quiet and to forgive and to not retaliate and to pray. But that is really easy for me to preach and really difficult for them to live out. What you need to appreciate is how the message of Jesus and the gospel has gone to pretty much every country in the world, and you'll find Christians and churches in all these nations doing what I do, but in a way that makes sense to them where they are. So, for example, in South Africa, a little while back, there was time when black people were badly oppressed, the period known as apartheid. And the church spoke out. An amazing guy called Desmond Tutu, Bishop Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, as he became. And they spoke out about it, and they helped turn the hearts and minds, and were part of bringing down that regime. And then afterwards they set up what was known as the Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And the result of that was about helping people to come forward and talk about what it was that had happened. Because it was in the honest sharing and talking that enabled people to forgive, enabled the truth to be heard, and bring healing to communities because of that. Reconciliation. It's a key and big work of what the church tries to do in broken families, broken communities, broken nations, and we try and do what we do there. It's difficult, but we think it's really important. Christian practices. What we've been looking at is the worldwide church, and particularly that aspect of what mission is and evangelism. Mission in terms of helping people for a fairer and just, more just world, and showing you the good news of Jesus in evangelism, and that part. And moving on to persecution, and to seeing how the church has grown. You might see it less in this country, but certainly in other countries. In China, huge numbers of Christians. In Korea, South Korea particularly, huge numbers of Christians there. All sorts of places in the world where people have heard about the stuff that I talk about all the time in Jesus, and it's made a difference to their lives as part of the mission, part of the evangelism stuff. I look forward to the next time when I can do something like this. Peace.